Now, good evening, ladies and gentlemen. I want to personally welcome each and every single one of you to the Clondalkin Drama Group's production of The Importance of Being Earnest. Just a few things, naturally, that we're going to go over, of course, before we get started. So, health and safety, naturally, that would be first. In the case of any kind of an emergency, there are two emergency exits. One, which is the stairs that you just came up, and the other is on the other side of the bar. Okay? So, in any kind of emergency, we do ask that you just proceed down them in a very calm and orderly fashion. Okay? Mobile phones. If you want to put your phones on silent or turn them off completely, it is up to yourselves. And also, when it does come to any kind of photography or video recording, absolutely no problem at all. We actually encourage it. We do just ask that you turn the flash off, because the flash can be a little bit distracting for the cast while they're on stage. Okay? Restrooms. Ladies, you're all in luck. The ladies' restroom is just behind that door there to your left. And gents, I'm sorry to say, but if you need to use the restrooms, you'll have to go downstairs. Okay? Oh. We will be having a 15-minute interval about halfway through the production. So during that time, if you want to use the restrooms or go downstairs, get yourselves a couple of drinks and a snack and bring them back up, absolutely no problem at all. We encourage that as well. Alright? So, with all that now being said, what I want you all to do is to sit back, relax, and I hope that you all enjoy the Clondalkin Drama Group's production of The Importance of Being Earnest. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you very much. Enjoy.
Did you hear what I was playing, Lane?
I didn't think it polite to listen, sir.
I'm sorry about that, for your sake. I don't play accurately. Anyone can play accurately. But I play with wonderful expression. As far as the piano is concerned, sentiment is my forte. I save science for life.
Yes, sir.
Speaking of the science of life, Lane, have you got the cucumber sandwiches cut for Lady Bracknell?
Yes, sir.
Oh, by the way, Lane, I see from your book that on Thursday night when Lord Shorman and Mr. Worthing were dining here, 8 bottles of champagne are entered as having been consumed.
Yes, sir. 8 bottles and a pint.
Why is it that at a bachelor's establishment the servants invariably drink the champagne? I ask merely for information.
I attribute it to superior quality of the wine, sir. I am informed that in most married households, the champagne is very rarely a first-rate brand.
Good heavens! Is married life really so demoralizing as that?
I believe it to be a very pleasant state, sir, though I have very little experience of it myself. I've only been married the once. That was a misunderstanding between myself and the young person.
Don't know that I'm much interested in your family life, Lane.
No, sir. It is not a very interesting subject. I never speak of it much myself.
Very natural, I'm sure. Thank you, Lane. That will do.
Thank you, sir.
Really? Lane's views on married life seem somewhat lax. I mean, if the lower orders don't set us a good example, what on earth is the use of them? These seem as a class to have no sense of moral responsibility.
Mr. Ernest Worthing.
Ernest, what brings you up to town?
Oh, pleasure. Pleasure. What else would bring one anywhere? Eating again, I see, Algy.
I believe it is customary in polite society to have some slight refreshments at 5 o'clock. Where have you been since last Thursday?
In the country.
What on earth do you do there?
When one is in town, one amuses oneself. When one's in the country, one amuses others. It's excessively boring.
Who are these people that you amuse?
Oh, neighbours. Neighbours.
Got nice neighbours in your part of Shropshire?
Perfectly horrid. Never speak to one of them.
How immensely you must amuse them. Shropshire is your county, is it not?
Oh, Shropshire? Yes, of course. Hello. Why all these cups? Why cucumber sandwiches? Why such reckless extravagance in one so young? Who's coming to tea?
Merely Aunt Augusta.
Yeah.
and Gwendolyn.
Oh, how perfectly delightful.
Yes, but, my dear fellow, I'm afraid Aunt Augusta won't quite approve of your being here.
May I ask why?
Dear fellow, the way you flirt with Gwendolyn is absolutely disgraceful. It's almost as bad as the way that Gwendolyn flirts with you.
I am in love with Gwendolyn. I've come to town expressly to propose to her.
I thought you said you came up for pleasure. I call that business.
How utterly unromantic you are.
There's nothing romantic in proposing. It's very romantic to be in love, but there's nothing romantic about a definite proposal. One may be accepted. One usually is, I believe. But then the excitement is all over. The very essence of romance is uncertainty. If ever I get married, I shall certainly try to forget the fact.
I have no doubt about that, my dear Algy. The divorce court was specifically created for those whose minds are so curiously constituted.
There's no use speculating on that subject. Divorces are made in heaven. Don't touch the cucumber sandwiches. They're made specially for Aunt Augusta.
Well, you've been eating them the whole time.
Well, that is different. She's my aunt. Here, have some bread and butter. The bread and butter is for Gwendolyn. Gwendolyn is simply devoted to bread and butter.
And very good bread and butter it is.
You need not eat as if you're going to eat it all. You act as if you're already married to Gwendolyn. You are not already married to her, and I dare say you never will be.
What makes you say that?
In the first place, girls don't marry the men that they flirt with. Girls don't think it right.
That is nonsense.
It isn't. It accounts for the extraordinary number of bachelors one sees nowadays. In the second place, I don't give my consent.
Your consent?
My dear fellow, Gwendolyn is my first cousin, and before I allow you to marry her, you must first clear up the question of Cecily.
Cecily? What do you mean by Cecily? I don't know anyone by the name of Cecily.
Bring me the cigarette case Mr. Worthing left in the smoking room the last time he dined here.
Yes, sir.
Do you mean to say you've had my cigarette case this whole time? I do wish you'd let me know. I've been writing frantic letters to Scotland Yard about it. I was very nearly offering a large reward.
Well, I wish you would offer one. I happen to be more than usually hard up at the moment.
There's no use offering a large reward now that the thing's found.
It's very mean of you, Ernest, I must say. Thank you. However, it makes no matter, for now that I read the inscription inside, I see that this isn't your cigarette case after all.
Of course it's mine. You've seen me with it 100 times. And you've no right whatsoever to read what's written inside. It's a very ungentlemanly thing to read a private cigarette case.
It's absurd to have a hard and fast rule about what one should read and what one shouldn't read. More than half of modern culture depends on what one shouldn't read.
I'm quite aware of the fact, and I don't propose to debate modern culture with you. It isn't the sort of thing one should discuss in private. I simply want my cigarette case back.
Yes, but this isn't your cigarette case. This cigarette case is a gift from someone of the name of Cecily, and you said you didn't know anyone of that name.
Well, if you must know, Cecily happens to be my aunt.
Your aunt?
Yes, charming old lady she is too. Lives in Tunbridge Wells. Just give it to me, auntie.
But why does she call herself Little Cecily if she is your aunt and lives at Tunbridge Wells? From Little Cecily with her fondest love.
My dear fellow, what is with that? Some men's tall, some men's not tall. That is surely a matter an aunt might decide for herself. You see the thing, all aunts should be exactly like yours, and that is absurd. Now, for goodness sake, give me back my cigarette case.
Yes, but why does she call you her uncle if she is your aunt and lives at Tunbridge Wells? From Little Cecily with her fondest love to her dear Uncle Jack. There is no objection, I admit, to an aunt being a small aunt. But why an aunt, no matter what her size, would call her own nephew her uncle, I can't quite make out. Besides, your name isn't Jack, it's Ernest.
It isn't Ernest, it's Jack.
You always told me it was Ernest. I've introduced you to everyone as Ernest. You answer to the name of Ernest. I mean, you look as if your name was Ernest. You are the most earnest-looking person I've ever met in my life. It's absurd you're saying your name isn't Ernest. It's even on one of your business cards. Mr. Ernest Worthing, B4 the Albany. I shall keep this as proof that your name is Ernest if ever you try to deny it to me, or to Gwendolyn, or to anyone else.
Well, my name is Ernest in town and Jack in the country, and that cigarette case was given to me in the country.
Yes, but that does not account for why your small Aunt Cecily, who lives in Tunbridge Wells, calls you her uncle. Come on, old boy, you had much better have the whole thing out at once.
Algy, you speak exactly as if you were a dentist. It's very short continue to talk like a dentist when you're not a dentist. It produces a false impression.
Well, that is exactly what dentists always do. Now, why are you Ernest in town and Jack in the country? I may mention I have always suspected you of being a confirmed and secret Bunburyist. I'm quite sure of it now.
Bunburyist? What on earth's a Bunburyist?
I'll reveal to you the meaning of that incomparable expression as soon as you are kind enough to tell me why you are Ernest in town and Jack in the country.
Well, first produce my cigarette case.
There it is. Now, produce your explanation and, pray, make it improbable.
My dear fellow, there's nothing improbable about it. Old Mr. Thomas Cardew, who adopted me as a young boy, made me in his will guardian to his granddaughter, Miss Cecily Cardew. Cecily, who addresses me as an uncle and notice and respect to you, partly understand, lives at my place in the country under the tutelage of her admirable governess, Miss Priscilla.
And where is this place in the country, by the way?
That has nothing to do with dear fellow. I will tell you quite candidly, it's not in Shropshire.
I suspected that, my dear fellow. I've Bunburyed all across Shropshire on 2 separate occasions. Now, why are you Ernest in town and Jack in the country?
Algy, I don't know if you could understand my real motives. You're hardly serious enough. But when one is placed in the position of guardian, one must adopt a high moral tone in all subjects. And as a high moral tone can hardly conduce to one's health or to one's happiness, in order to get up to London as often as I like, I have invented a younger brother of the name of Ernest, who lives at the Albany Inn and gets into the most dreadful of scrapes. That, my dear fellow, is the truth, pure and simple.
The truth is rarely pure and never simple. Modern life would be very tedious if it were either, and modern literature a complete impossibility.
That wouldn't be at all a bad thing.
Literary criticism is not your forte, my dear fellow. Don't try it. You should leave it to those who haven't been at a university. You know they do it so well in the daily papers. No, what you really are is a Bunburyist. I was quite right in saying you were a Bunburyist. You know, you are one of the most advanced Bunburyists I've ever met.
Go on. What's a Bunburyist?
Right. You have invented a very useful younger brother named Ernest, in order that you may be able to come up to town whenever you choose. I have invented a permanent invalid named Bunbury, in order that I may be able to pop off down the country whenever I choose. Bunbury is perfectly invaluable. I mean, if it wasn't for Bunbury's extraordinary bad health, for instance, I wouldn't be able to dine with you tonight at Willis's, where I've really been engaged to Aunt Augusta for more than a week.
I haven't asked you to dine with me anywhere this evening.
I know. So foolish of you. You're so careless at sending out invitations. Nothing annoys people so much as not receiving invitations.
You would much better dine with your Aunt Augusta.
I haven't the slightest idea of doing anything of the sort. In the first place, I dined with her on Monday, and once a week is more than enough to dine with one's own relations. In the second place, whenever I do dine there, I am always treated as a member of the family and set down with either no woman at all or 2. In the third place, I know perfectly well with whom she will sit me next to tonight. She will sit me next to Mary Farquhar. She always flirts with her own husband across the dinner table. That sort of thing isn't decent. It looks so bad. I mean, it's like washing one's clean linen in public. And that sort of thing is enormously on the increase. The amount of women you see in London flirting with their own husbands is positively disgraceful. Besides, now that I know that you're a Bunburyist, I naturally want to talk to you about Bunburying. I want to tell you all the rules.
I'm not a Bunburyist at all. If Gwendolyn accepts my proposal, I'm going to kill my brother. In any case, I might kill him anyway. Cecily's a little too interested in him. It's rather a bore. So I'm going to kill my brother, and I suggest you do the same with Mr. What's your invalid friend with a ridiculous name?
Nothing would induce me to part with Bunbury. And if you ever do get married, which seems to me to be extremely problematic, you would be very happy to know Bunbury. A man who marries without knowing Bunbury has a very tedious time of it.
That is nonsense. If I was to marry a sweet, refined, intellectual girl like Gwendolyn, I certainly wouldn't want to know Bunbury.
Then your wife would. My dear fellow, you don't seem to realize that in married life, 3 is company and 2 is none.
That, my dear fellow, is the theory that corrupt French drama has been supporting for the past 50 years.
Yes, and that the happy English home is proved in half the time.
For heaven's sake, don't be cynical. It's perfectly easy to be cynical.
My dear fellow, it's not perfectly easy to be anything nowadays. There's such a lot of beastly competition about. That must be Aunt Augusta. Only relatives or creditors ever ring in that Wagnerian manner. Good. If I get her out of the way for 10 minutes, so that you might have the opportunity to propose to Gwendolen, can I dine with you tonight at Willis's?
I suppose, if you want to.
Yes, but you must be serious about it. I hate people who aren't serious about meals. It's so shallow of them.
Lady Bracknell and Miss Fairfax.
Good afternoon, Algernon. I hope you are behaving very well.
I'm feeling very well, thank you, Aunt Augusta.
No, that's not quite the same thing. In fact, the two things rarely go together.
Dear me, you are smart.
I am always smart. Am I not, Mr. Worthing?
You are quite perfect, Miss Fairfax.
Oh, I hope I am not that. It would leave no room for development, and I intend to develop in many directions.
I'm sorry if we are a little late, Algernon, but I was obliged to call on dear Lady Harbury. I haven't seen her since her poor husband's death. I've never seen a woman so altered. She looks quite 20 years younger. Now, I'll have a cup of tea and one of those nice cucumber sandwiches you promised me.
Yes, Aunt Augusta.
Won't you come and sit here, Gwendolen?
Thanks, Mamma. I'm quite comfortable where I am.
Lane, why are there no cucumber sandwiches? I ordered them specially for Aunt Augusta.
There were no cucumbers in the market this morning, sir. I checked twice.
No cucumbers?
No, sir. Not even for ready money.
Thank you, Lane, that will do.
Thank you, sir.
Augusta, I am so sorry about there being no cucumbers. Not even for ready money.
Oh, it really makes no matter. I had some crumpets with Lady Harbury, who seems to me to be living entirely for pleasure now.
Yes, I hear her hair has turned quite gold with grief.
It has certainly changed colour. From what cause, of course, I cannot say. Thank you. Now, I have such a treat for you tonight, Algernon. I'm going to send you down with Mary Farquhar. She's such a nice woman, so attentive to her husband. It's delightful to watch them.
I am sorry, Aunt Augusta, but it seems that I will have to give up the pleasure of dining with you tonight after all.
Well, I hope not. It would put my table completely out. Your poor uncle would have to dine upstairs. Fortunately, he's accustomed to that.
It is a great disappointment, and I need hardly say a terrible bore, but you see, I've just received a telegram about my friend Bunbury. He's quite ill again. They seem to think I should be with him.
I must say, I think it's high time this Mr. Bunbury made up his mind whether he was going to live or to die. This shilly-shally question is quite absurd. No, nor do I have any sympathy with the modern idea of invalids. Illness of any sort is not something that should be encouraged in others. The health is the primary duty of life. I'm always telling that to your uncle. Not that he seems to take any notice as far as any improvement in his health is concerned. But I would be obliged, Algernon, if you would ask Mr. Bunbury from me to be kind enough not to have a relapse on Saturday. For I rely on you to organise my music for me. It is my last reception, and one needs something to encourage conversation, particularly when everyone has said practically everything they wanted to say, which in most cases probably wasn't very much.
I'll speak to Bunbury, Aunt Augusta, if he is conscious. But I think I can promise you he'll be all right by Saturday. Music, on the other hand, is a great difficulty. See, if one plays good music, people don't listen. If one plays bad music, people don't talk. But I'll run over the program I've drawn up if you'll just accompany me into the other room for another moment.
That's very thoughtful of you, Algernon. I'm sure the programme is going to be delightful, particularly after a few explanations. French songs I simply cannot allow. People seem to think they are improper and look shocked, which is vulgar, or laugh, which is worse. But German seems to me a most respectable language, and I believe is so. Gwendolyn, you will accompany me.
Yes, Mamma.
Charming day, Miss Fairfax.
Pray, don't talk to me about the weather, Mr. Worthing. Whenever people talk to me about the weather, I often feel they mean something else, and that makes me so nervous.
I do mean something else.
I thought so. In fact, I am never wrong.
And I would like to take advantage of Lady Bracklow's temporary absence.
I would certainly advise you to do so. Mamma has a way of coming back suddenly into a room that I've often had to speak to her about.
Miss Fairfax, ever since I met you, I've admired you more than any girl I've ever met since I met you.
Yes, I am quite well aware of the fact, and I often wish that in public, at any rate, you would be more demonstrative. For me, you have always had an irresistible fascination. Even before I met you, I was far from indifferent to you. We live, as I hope you know, Mr. Worthing, in an age of ideals. The fact is constantly mentioned in the more expensive monthly magazines and has reached the provincial pulpits, I am told. And my ideal has always been to love someone of the name of Ernest. There is something in that name that inspires absolute confidence. The moment Algernon first mentioned to me that he had a friend called Ernest, I knew I was destined to love you.
You really love me, Gwendolyn.
Passionately.
Darling, you've no idea how happy this makes me.
My own Ernest.
But you don't mean to say that if my name wasn't Ernest, you couldn't love me?
But your name is Ernest.
Well, yes, I know. But say it was something else. Couldn't you love me then?
Ah, that is clearly a metaphysical speculation. And like most metaphysical speculations, leaves very little reference to the actual facts of real life as we know them.
Yes. But to speak quite frankly, darling, I don't really like the name Ernest. I don't think it suits me at all.
It suits you perfectly. It's a divine name. It has a music of its own. It produces vibrations.
Well, really, Gwendolyn, I feel there's a lot of quite nicer names out there. Jack, for instance, is a charming name.
Jack? No! There is very little music in the name Jack, if any at all, indeed. It does not thrill. It produces absolutely no vibrations. Besides, I have known several Jacks, and they all, without exception, were more than usually tame. Also, Jack is a notorious domesticity for John, and I pity any woman who is married to a man called John. She would probably never be allowed to experience the entrancing pleasure of a single moment's solitude. The only really safe name is Ernest.
Gwendolyn, I must get christened at once. We must get married at once.
Married, Mr. Burnett?
Well, yes. You know I love you, and you let me believe, Miss Fairfax, that you're not entirely indifferent to me.
I adore you, but you have not proposed to me yet. Nothing at all has been said about marriage. The subject has not even been touched on.
Well, may I propose to you now?
I think it would be an admirable opportunity, Mr. Worthing, and to spare you any possible disappointment. I think it only fair to tell you quite frankly beforehand that I'm fully determined to accept you.
Gwendolyn, darling!
Yes, Mr. Worthing, what have you got to say to me?
Well, you know what I've got to say.
Yes, but you don't say it.
Gwendolyn, will you marry me?
Of course I will, darling. How long you have been about it. I'm afraid you've had very little experience of how to propose.
But my own darling, I've only ever loved you.
Yes, but men often propose for practice. I know my brother Gerald does. All my girlfriends tell me so. What wonderful blue eyes you have, Ernest. They are quite blue. I hope you will always look at me just like that, especially when there are other people present.
Mr. Worthing, rise, sir, from that semi-recumbent posture. It is most indecorous.
Mamma, I must beg you to retire. This is no place for you. Besides, Mr. Worthing is not quite finished yet.
Finished what, may I ask?
I'm engaged to be married to Mr. Worthing, Mamma.
Oh, you are nothing of the sort. When you do become engaged, I, or your father, should his health permitting, will inform you of the fact. An engagement should come upon a young girl as a surprise. Pleasant or unpleasant, as the case may be. It is not something she should be allowed to arrange for herself. Now, I have some questions to put to you, Mr. Worthing, and while I am making these inquiries, you, Gwendolyn, will wait for me below in the carriage.
Yes, Mamma.
The carriage, Gwendolyn?
Yes, Mamma.
Gwendolyn!
Yes,
the
Mamma.
carriage! You may take a seat, Mr. Worthing.
Thank you, Lady Bracknell. I prefer standing.
I feel bound to inform you that you are not on my list of eligible young men, although I have the same list that dear Duchess Bolton has. We work together, in fact. But I would be prepared to add your name, should your answers be what every really affectionate mother requires. Now then, tell me, do you smoke?
Well, yes, I must admit I smoke.
I'm glad to hear it. Every young man should have an occupation of some sort. There are far too many idle men in London as it is. How old are you?
29.
A very good age to be married. I have always been of the opinion that a man who desires to marry should know everything or nothing. Which do you know?
I know nothing, Lady Bracknell.
I am pleased to hear it. Oh, I do not like anything that tampers with natural ignorance. Ignorance is like a delicate exotic fruit. Touch it and the bloom is gone. But the whole theory of modern education is radically unsound. But fortunately, in England, at any rate, education has no effect whatsoever. If it did, it could prove a serious danger to the upper classes and possibly lead to acts of violence in Grosvenor Square. What is your income?
Between 7,000 and 8,000 a year.
In land or in investment?
In investments, chiefly.
Oh, that is satisfactory. What with the duties expected of one during one's lifetime and the duties exacted from one after one's death, land has ceased to be a pleasure or a profit. It gives one position, but it prevents one from keeping it up. That's all that can be said about land.
I have a country house with some land in it, of course. Some 1,500 acres. But I don't rely on that for my primary income, and as best I can make out, the poachers are the only thing to get anything out of it.
Oh, a country house. How many bedrooms? Look, we can clear that up later. You have a townhouse, I hope. A girl of such an unspoiled nature such as Gwendolyn would hardly be expected to reside in the country.
I have a townhouse in Belgrave Square. but it's let by the year to Lady Bloxham. Of course, I can have it back whenever I like at 6 months' notice.
Lady Bloxham. I don't know her.
Oh, that's no big surprise. She doesn't get very much. She's a lady considerably advanced in years.
Oh, and nowadays that is no guarantee of respectability of character. What, number, Belgrave Square?
149.
Oh, the unfashionable side. But we could alter that, I suppose.
The fashion or the side?
Well, both, if necessary, I presume. What are your politics?
I'm afraid I really have none. I'm a liberal unionist.
Oh, they count as Tories. They dine with us, or come in the evening at any rate. Now to minor matters. Are your parents living?
I have lost both my parents.
Oh, to lose one parent, Mr. Worthing, might be regarded as a misfortune. To lose both looks like carelessness. Who was your father? He was obviously a man of some wealth. Did he come from what the radical papers call the purple of commerce? Or did he rise from the ranks of the aristocracy?
I said I had lost both my parents, Lady Bracknell. It would be more accurate to say that they lost me. I don't actually know who I am by birth. I was found.
Found?
Yes, old Mr. Thomas Cardew, a kind and charitable gentleman, found me as a young boy and gave me the name of Worthing, because he had a first-class ticket to Worthing in his pocket at the time. Worthing is a seaside resort.
And where did this charitable gentleman who had a first-class ticket to this seaside resort find you?
In a handbag.
A handbag?
Yes, Lady Bracknell, a large leather handbag with handles. A perfectly ordinary handbag.
Oh, and in what location did this James or Thomas Cardew come across this perfectly ordinary handbag?
The cloakroom at Victoria Station. It was given to him in mistake for his own.
The cloakroom? At Victoria Station?
Yes, the Brighton line.
Oh, the line is immaterial, Mr. Worthing. I must say I feel somewhat bewildered by what you have just told me. To be born, or at any rate bred, in a handbag seems to me to display a contempt for the ordinary values of family life, which reminds one of the worst excesses of the French Revolution. I presume you know what that unfortunate movement came to. As for the locality in which the handbag was found, a cloakroom at a railway station. It could have been used to conceal a social indiscretion. In fact, it probably has been used for that purpose before now. It could hardly be regarded as an assured basis for a recognized position in good society.
Well, may I ask what you advise me to do? I'd nearly say I'd do anything to ensure Gwendolyn's happiness.
Well, I would strongly advise you to acquire some relations as soon as possible, and to make every effort to produce one parent of either sex before the season is quite over.
I hardly see how I can do that. I can produce the handbag at a moment's notice. It's in my drawing room at home. I really feel that should satisfy you, Lady Bracknell.
Me? Oh, what has it to do with me, sir? You could hardly imagine that I, or Lord Bracknell, would allow our only daughter, a girl brought up with the utmost care, to marry into a cloakroom, form an alliance with a parcel. Good day, Mr. Worthing.
Good day! Oh, knock it off, Algie! Stop playing that ghastly tune! How idiotic you are!
Didn't it go off all right, old boy? You don't mean to say that she refused you? Gwendolyn is always refusing people. It's a way she has. I think it's most ill-natured of her.
Gwendolyn's right as a trivet. As far as she's concerned, we're engaged. Her mother, however, is unbearable. I've never met such a gorgon. Not exactly sure what a gorgon is, but I'm sure she is one. In any case, she's a monster without being a myth, and I find that quite unfair. I'm sorry, Algie. I suppose I shouldn't talk about your family about it like that in front of you.
My dear fellow, I love hearing my relations abused. It's the only thing that makes me put up with them at all. Relations are just a tedious pack of people who haven't the slightest idea of how to live, nor the remotest inclination of when to die.
Heavens. If I thought that, I'd shoot myself. You don't think there's any chance of Gwendolyn turning out like her mother 150 years, do you?
All women turn out like their mothers. That is their greatest tragedy. No man does. That's his.
Is that clever?
Well, it's perfectly phrased. And quite as true as any observation in polite society should be.
I'm sick to death of cleverness. Everybody's clever nowadays. Cleverness has become a right public nuisance. I wish to goodness we had some fools left.
We have
Oh, where are they? I would love to meet them. What do they talk about?
the fools.
Yes.
My clever people, of course.
What fools?
Did you tell Gwendolyn the truth about your being Ernest in town and Jack in the country?
My dear fellow, the truth isn't the sort of thing one just blurts out to a sweet, sensible, refined girl. What strange ideas you have on how to behave to a woman.
The only way to behave to a woman is to make love to her if she is pretty, and to someone else if she is plain.
That is nonsense.
Well, what about your brother? What about the profligate Ernest?
By the end of this week, I'll have killed my brother. I'll say he died abroad, in Paris. Of apoplexy. Lots of people die suddenly of apoplexy, don't they?
Yes. But it is hereditary. It's the kind of thing that runs in families. You'd much better say, a severe chill.
You're sure a severe chill isn't hereditary or anything of the kind?
Of course it isn't.
Then it's settled. Oh, brother Ernest, carried off suddenly of a severe chill. That'll get rid of him.
Oh, but what about this, Miss Cardew? Didn't you say she was a little too much taken with your poor brother? Won't she feel his loss a great deal?
That's all right. Cecily isn't a simple, sentimental girl, I'm pleased to say. She has got a capital appetite, goes on long walks, and pays no attention to her studies.
I should very much like to meet this Cecily.
And I will take good care that you don't. She's excessively pretty and only just 18.
Oh! Have you told Gwendolyn that you have an excessively pretty ward who is only just 18?
My dear fellow, these aren't the sort of things you just bring up in polite conversation. I'll bet you anything that 30 minutes after they meet, Gwendolyn and Cecily will be calling each other sister.
Women only call each other that after they've called each other a great many other things first. Now, if we want to get a good table at Willis's, we really must go and dress. Do you know it's nearly 7?
It's always nearly 7.
I'm hungry.
I never knew you when you weren't.
What should we do after dinner? Should we could go to the theatre.
Oh no. I loathe listening.
Well, we could go to the club.
I hate talking.
What if we popped around the Empire at 10?
I can't stand looking at things.
Then what shall we do?
Nothing.
It's awfully hard work doing nothing. Luckily, I don't mind hard work when there's absolutely no definite object of any kind.
Miss Fairfax.
Gwendolyn, upon my word.
Algie, kindly turn your back. I have something very particular to ask Mr. Worthing.
Gwendolyn, really, I don't think I can allow this.
Algie, you always adopt a strictly immoral attitude towards life. You're not quite old enough to do that.
My own darling.
Ernest, we may never be married. And from the expression on Mamma's face, I fear we never shall. Few parents nowadays pay any regard to what their children say to them. The old-fashioned respect for the young is fast dying out. Whatever influence I had over Mamma, I lost at the age of 3. But although She may prevent us from becoming man and wife, and I may marry someone else, and marry often. Nothing that she can possibly do can alter my eternal devotion to you.
Dear Gwendolyn.
The story of your romantic origin, as related to me by Mamma, with unpleasing comments, has naturally stirred the deeper fibers within me. Your Christian name has an irresistible fascination. The simplicity of your character makes you exquisitely incomprehensible to me.
My own one.
Your town address at the Albany I have. What is your address in the country?
The Manor House, Walton, Hertfordshire.
There is a good postal service, I suppose. It may be necessary to do something desperate. That, of course, will require serious consideration. I will communicate with you daily.
My own one.
How long do you remain in town?
Till Monday.
Good. Algy, you may turn round now.
I already have.
You may also ring the bell.
You will let me see you to your carriage, won't you, my own darling?
Certainly.
I shall see Miss Fairfax out.
Yes, sir.
A glass of sherry, Lane.
Yes, sir.
Tomorrow, Lane, I'm going bumbering.
Yes, sir.
I probably shan't be back till Monday. You can put out the smoking jacket, the dress suits, and all the Bunbury clothes.
Yes, sir.
Thank you. I do hope tomorrow will be a fine day, Lane.
It never is, sir.
Lane, you are a perfect pessimist.
I do my best, sir.
Thank you, Lane, that will do.
Thank you, sir.
There goes a sweet, refined, intellectual girl. The only girl I ever saw that I would marry. Go on. What's so amusing?
Nothing. I'm just so worried about my poor friend Bunbury, that's all.
If you're not careful, your friend Bunbury's going to get you into a serious scrape one of these days.
Oh, I love scrapes. They're the only thing that are never serious.
That is nonsense. You never talk anything but nonsense.
Nobody ever does.
such a utilitarian occupation as watering flowers is more Malton's duty than yours, especially when such intellectual pleasures await you. The German is here on the table. Pray, open it, page 15. I will repeat yesterday's lesson.
But I don't like German. It isn't at all a becoming language. I know perfectly well I look quite plain after my German lesson.
You know how anxious your guardian is for you to improve yourself in every way. He laid particular stress on your German leaving for town yesterday, and in fact he always lays stress on your German leaving for town.
Uncle Jack is so very serious. Sometimes he's so serious I think he cannot be quite well.
Your guardian enjoys the very best of health, and his gravity of demeanour is to be commended in someone so comparatively young as he is. I know nobody with a higher sense of duty and responsibility.
I suppose that's why he often looks a little bored when we three are together.
Cecily, I'm surprised at you. Mr. Worthing has many troubles in his life, but idle merriment and triviality would be out of place in this conversation. And you must remember his constant anxiety over that unfortunate young man, his brother.
I do wish Uncle Jack would allow that unfortunate young man, his brother, to come down here sometimes. We might have a good influence over him, Miss Prism. I'm sure you certainly would. You know German and geology and things of that kind can influence a man very much.
I do not think that even I could have an effect on someone who, by his own brother's admission, is so irretrievably weak and vacillating. In fact, I am not sure I'd wish to reclaim him. I do not see the need for this modern-day mania of turning bad people into good people at a moment's notice. As a man sows, so shall he reap. Cecily, you must put away your diary. What do you feel the need to keep a diary for anyway?
I keep a diary in order to enter all the wonderful secrets of my life. If I didn't write them down, I should probably forget all about them.
Oh, memory, my dear Cecily, the diary that we all carry around with us.
Yes, but it often chronicles the things that have never happened and couldn't possibly have happened. I believe that memory is responsible for nearly all the 3-volume novels that Moody sends us.
Oh, do not speak slightingly of the 3-volume novel. I wrote one myself in earlier days.
Did you really, Miss Prism? Oh, how wonderfully clever you are. I hope it did not end happily. I hate novels that end happily. They depress me so much.
Well, the good ended happily, and the bad ended unhappily. And that is what fiction is.
I suppose so. But it seems very unfair. And was your novel ever published?
Oh, alas, no. The manuscript was abandoned. Now, I use the word in the sense of lost, mislaid. Now, to your work, child. The speculation is profitless.
But I see dear Dr. Chasuble coming up through the garden.
Dr. Chasuble, this is indeed a pleasure.
And how are we this morning? Miss Prism, you are, I trust, well?
Oh, Miss Prism has just been complaining of a slight headache. I think it would do her so much good to take a short stroll with you in the park, Dr. Chasuble.
Cecily, I said nothing of a slight headache.
Oh, no, Miss Prism, I know that. But I felt instinctively that you had a headache. Indeed, I was thinking about that, and not about my German lesson when the rector came in.
Oh, well, Cecily, I hope you are not inattentive.
Oh, I'm afraid I am.
Oh, that is strange. For were I fortunate enough to be Miss Prism's pupil, I would hang upon her lips. I spoke metaphorically, of course. My metaphor was drawn from bees. 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 I trust Mr. Worthing has not returned yet.
Oh, we will not look for him until Monday afternoon.
Oh yes, he usually likes to spend his Sundays in London. He is not one of those whose sole aim is enjoyment, as by all accounts that unfortunate young man his young brother seems to be. But alas, I shall not deserve Egeria and your pupil any longer.
Egeria? Doctor, my name is Letitia.
Yes, of course, a classical allusion merely, drawn from the pagan auteurs. I trust I shall no doubt see you both at evensong.
Actually, Doctor, I think I may have a walk with you. I feel I might have a slight headache coming on after all.
Oh, With
A
pleasure.
walk might do it good.
With pleasure, Miss Prism, with dear pleasure. We ought to go as far as schools and back.
That would be delightful. Cecily, you'll read your political economy in my absence. But you may omit the chapter on the fall of the rupee. It is somewhat too sensational. And even these metallic problems have their melodramatic sides.
Horrid political economy, horrid geography, horrid German.
Mr. Ernest Worthing has just driven over from the station. He's brought his luggage with him.
Mr. Ernest Worthing, B4, the Albany W. Uncle Jack's brother. Did you tell him Mr. Worthing was in town?
Yes, miss. He seemed very much disappointed. I mentioned that you and Miss Prism were in the garden. He asked to speak to you privately for a moment.
Ask Mr. Ernest Worthing to come here. I suppose you'd better speak to the housekeeper of the room for him.
Yes, miss.
I have never met any really wicked person before. I feel rather frightened. I'm so afraid he will look just like everyone else. He does.
You are my little cousin Cecily, I'm sure.
You are under some strange mistake. I'm not little. I believe I'm more than usually tall for my age. But I am your cousin Cecily. You, I see from your card, are Uncle Jack's brother. My cousin Ernest. My wicked cousin Ernest.
Not really wicked, cousin Cecily. You mustn't think that I'm wicked.
If you are not, then you have certainly been deceiving us all in a very inexcusable manner. I hope you have not been leading a double life, pretending to be wicked and being really good all the time. That would be hypocrisy.
Well, now that you mention it, I have been rather reckless.
I'm very glad to hear it.
In fact, I have been very bad in my own way.
I don't think you should be so proud of that, although I'm sure it was very pleasant.
It is much pleasanter being here with you.
Well, I can't understand how you're here at all. Uncle Jack won't be back until Monday afternoon.
Yes, that is a great disappointment. But you see, I'm obliged to go up by the first train Monday. I have a business engagement that I'm anxious to miss.
Couldn't you miss it anywhere but in London?
No, the appointment is in London.
Well, I understand, of course, how important it is not to keep a business engagement if one wants to retain any sense of the beauty of life. But I still think you had better wait until Uncle Jack arrives. I know he wants to speak with you about your emigrating.
About my what?
You're emigrating. He's gone up to buy your outfit.
I wouldn't let Jack buy my outfit. He has absolutely no taste in neckties whatsoever.
I don't think you should require neckties. Uncle Jack is sending you to Australia.
Australia? I'd sooner die.
Well, he said at dinner on Wednesday night that you would have to choose between this world, the next world, and Australia.
Oh. Well, the accounts I've heard of the next world and Australia are not at all encouraging. This world is good enough for me.
Yes. But are you good enough for it?
I'm afraid I'm not. That's why I'm here. You might reform me, Cousin Cecily. You might make that your mission if you don't mind.
I'm afraid I've no time this afternoon.
Well, would you mind if I reformed myself this afternoon?
It is rather quixotic of you. But I think you should try.
I will. I feel better already.
You are looking a little worse.
It's because I'm hungry.
Oh, how thoughtless of me. I should have remembered that when one is going to live an entirely new life, one requires regular and wholesome meals. Won't you come in?
Might I have a buttonhole first? I never have any appetite unless I have a buttonhole first.
Marche Niel?
No. Can I have a pink rose, please?
Why?
Because you are like a pink rose, Cousin Cecily.
I don't think it could be quite right for you to talk to me like that. Miss Prism never said such things to me.
Then Miss Prism is a short-sighted old lady. You are the prettiest thing I ever saw.
Miss Prism says all good looks are a snare.
They're a snare that every sensible man should like to be caught in.
Oh, I don't think I would like to catch a sensible man. I shouldn't know what to talk to him about.
That is now the interval, so you all have 15 minutes to use the restrooms, go downstairs, get yourself a drink, a couple of snacks, and bring them back with us. Alright, we all do. Hope you're enjoying the show. Thank you very much.
Oh, you are too much alone, dear Doctor. You should get married. A misanthrope I can understand, but a womanthrope, never.
Oh, well, I do not deserve so many logistic affairs. The precept as well as the practice of the primitive church was distinctly against matrimony.
And that is obviously the reason why the primitive church has not lasted until the present day. You do not seem to realise, dear Doctor, that by remaining persistently single, a man converts himself into a permanent public temptation. Men should be more careful, as this very celibacy leads weaker vessels astray.
But is a man not equally attractive when married?
No married man is attractive except to his wife.
And often, as I've been told, not even to her.
Well, that depends on the intellectual sympathies of the woman. Matureness can be depended upon. Ripeness can be trusted. And young women are green. I spoke horticulturally. I draw my metaphor from fruits. Now where is Cecily?
No, but perhaps she followed us to the schools.
Mr. Worthing?
Mr. Worthing.
We didn't expect you until Monday afternoon.
I have returned much sooner than expected. Dr. Chasuble, I hope you are well.
Oh, dear Mr. Worthing, I trust that this garb of woe does not betoken some terrible calamity.
My brother,
Oh,
More shameful debts and extravagance.
still leading his life of pleasure.
dead.
Your brother Ernest, dead.
Quite dead.
Let that be a lesson for him. I trust he'll profit from it.
Oh, dear Mr. Worthing, you have my most sincere condolences. You have at least the consolation of knowing you are the most generous and forgiving of brothers.
Poor Ernest. He had his faults, but it's a sad, sad blow.
Oh, very sad indeed. Were you with them at the end?
No. He died abroad, in Paris in fact. I had a telegram last night from the manager of the Grand Hotel.
Oh, and was the cause of death mentioned?
A severe chill, it seems.
Oh, as a man sows, so shall he reap.
Oh, charity, dear Miss Prism, charity. None of us are perfect. I too am peculiarly susceptible to drafts. Will the interment take place here?
No. He seems to have expressed a desire to be buried in Paris.
In Paris? Oh, that hardly points to any very serious state of mind at the last. You would no doubt wish for me to make some slight allusion to this tragic domestic affliction next Sunday. My sermon on the meaning of the man in the wilderness can be adapted to almost any occasion, joyful or, as in the present case, distressing. I preach it at harvest celebrations, confirmations, christenings, days of humiliation, and festival days. I most recently delivered it in the cathedral as part of a charity sermon on behalf of the Society for the Prevention of Discontent amongst Super Orders. The bishop, who was present, was much struck by some of the analogies I drew.
That reminds me. You mentioned christenings, I think, Dr. Chasuble. I mean, I'm sure you know how to christen. I mean, you're continually christening, aren't you?
Ugh, I'm afraid to say it's one of the rector's most constant duties in this parish. I've tried speaking to the poorer classes on the subject, but they just don't seem to understand what thrift is.
But is there a particular infant in whom you are interested in, Mr. Worthing? Your brother was unmarried, was he not?
Oh yes.
Most people who live entirely for pleasure usually are.
But it's not for any child, dear doctor. I'm very fond of children. But no, the fact is, I would like to be christened myself. This afternoon, if you've nothing better.
Oh, but surely, Mr. Wording, you have been christened already.
I don't remember anything about it.
But surely you have some great doubts on the subject.
Oh, I certainly intend to have. Of course, I don't know if the thing would bother you in any way, or you think I'm a little too old now.
Well, no. No, indeed, the sprinkling and immersioning of adults is a perfectly canonical practice.
Immersion?
Oh, you need have no apprehensions. Sprinkling is all that is necessary, or indeed, I think advisable. You see, our weather is so changeable. Now, at what hour would you wish the ceremony performed?
Oh, I might trot round about 5 o'clock if that would suit.
Oh, perfectly. Perfectly. I have 2 similar cases to perform around that time. A case of twins that occurred in one of the outlying cottages of your own estate. Poor Jenkins, Sir Carter. He is a most hard-working man.
I don't really see there being much fun being christened along with other babies. It would be childish. Would 5:30 do?
Oh, well, admirably, admirably. Oh. And now, Mr. William, all I ask is that you not be too much bedded down by grief by the time the ceremony comes. What seem to us bitter trials are often blessings in disguise.
This seems to me a blessing of a most obvious kind.
Uncle Jack! I am pleased to see you back. But what horrid clothes you've got on. Do go and change them.
Cicely!
My child, my child.
What is the matter, Uncle Jack? Do you look happy? You look as if you'd had toothache, and I've got such a surprise for you. Who do you think is in the dining room? Your brother! Your brother Ernest. He arrived about half an hour ago.
What nonsense! I haven't got a brother.
Oh, don't say that. However badly he's behaved to you in the past, he's still your brother. You couldn't be so heartless as to disown him. I'll tell him to come out. And you will shake hands with him, won't you, Uncle Jack?
These are very joyful tidings, are they not?
Well, after resigning ourselves to his loss, his return seems peculiarly distressing to me.
My brother is in the dining room. I don't know what this means. I think it perfectly absurd.
Brother John! I've come from town to tell you that I am very sorry for all the trouble I've caused, and I intend to lead a better life from now on.
Jack! You are not going to refuse your own brother's hand.
Nothing would induce me to take his hand. I think his coming here disgraceful. He knows perfectly well why.
Uncle Jack, do be nice. There is some good in everyone. Ernest has just been telling me about his poor invalid friend, Mr. Bunbury, whom he goes to visit so often. And surely there must be much good in one who is kind to an invalid, and who leaves the pleasures of Lambton to sit by a bed of pain.
Oh, he's been talking about Bunbury, has he?
Yes, he's told me all about Mr. Bunbury and his terrible state of health.
Well, I shan't have to talk about Bunbury or anything else. It's enough to drive one perfectly frantic.
I admit that the faults are all on my side, but I must say I find Brother John's coldness towards me peculiarly painful. I expected a more enthusiastic welcome, especially considering this is the first time I have ever come here.
Uncle Jack, if you do not shake hands with Ernest, I shall never forgive you.
Never forgive me.
Never, never, never!
Well, this shall be the only time I do it.
It is pleasant, is it not, to see so perfect a reconciliation? Oh, we ought to leave the 2 brothers alone together.
Yes, Cecily, you will come with us.
Oh, certainly, Miss Prism. My little task of reconciliation is over.
Oh, you have done a beautiful action here today, dear child.
Oh, let's not be premature in our judgments.
I feel very happy.
You young scoundrel out there! You must get out of here at once. I don't allow any bunburying here.
I put Mr. Ernest's things in the room next to you, sir. That is all right.
What?
Mr. Ernest's luggage, sir. I've unpacked it and put it in the room next to your own.
His luggage.
Yes, sir. 3 portmanteaus, a dressing case, 2 hat boxes, and a large luncheon basket.
I'm afraid I can't stay for more than a week this time.
Merriman, call the dog cart round. Mr. Ernest has been called suddenly back to town.
Yes, sir.
What a fearful liar you are, Jack. I haven't been called anywhere.
Yes, you have.
I didn't hear anyone call me.
Your duty as a gentleman calls you.
Oh, my duty as a gentleman has never once interfered with my pleasure in the slightest degree.
I've no doubt about that.
Well, Cecily is a darling.
Don't talk about Miss Cardinal like that. I don't like it.
Well, I don't like your clothes. You look perfectly ridiculous in them. Why don't you go up and change? It's perfectly childish to be in deep mourning for a man who is actually staying with you for a whole week in your house as a guest. I call it grotesque.
You're certainly not staying with me for a week, or for anything else. You've got to leave by the 4:05 train.
Certainly wouldn't leave you while you were in mourning. It would be most unfriendly of me. If I were in mourning, you would stay with me, I suppose. I would think it most unkind if you didn't.
Well, if I change my clothes, will you go?
Yes, but do be quick about it. I've never seen anyone take so long to dress and with such little results.
Well, it's better than being constantly overdressed as you are.
If I am occasionally a little overdressed, I make up for it by always being immensely overeducated.
Your vanity is ridiculous. Your conduct an outrage, and your presence in my garden perfectly absurd. However, you've to catch the 4:05. This bunburying, as you call it, hasn't been a great success for you, has it?
Oh, I think it has been a great success. I'm in love with Cecily and that is everything. But I must see her before I go and make plans for another Bunbury. There she is.
Oh, I merely came back to water the roses. I thought you were with Uncle Jack.
Oh, he's gone to order the dog cart for me.
Oh, is he going to take you for a nice drive?
He's going to send me away.
Then have we got to part?
I'm afraid so. What a painful parting it is, too.
It is always very painful to part from someone whom one has known such a brief space of time. The absence of old friends one can endure with equanimity. But even a momentary separation from one to whom one has just been introduced is almost unbearable.
Thank you.
Dog cart is at the door, sir.
It can wait, Merriman, for 5 minutes.
Yes, miss.
Cecily, I hope I don't offend you if I state quite frankly and honestly that you seem to me to be in every way the visible personification of absolute perfection.
I think your frankness does you great credit, Ernest. If you will allow me, I would like to copy your remarks down into my diary.
Do you really keep a diary? I'd give anything to see it, may I?
Oh, no. You see, it is simply a very young girl's record of all her thoughts and impressions, and, consequently, meant for publication. When it appears in volume form, I do hope you will order a copy. But pray, Ernest, don't stop. I delight in taking down from dictation. I have reached absolute perfection. You can go on. I'm quite ready for more. Oh, don't cough, Ernest. When one is dictating, one should speak fluently and not cough. Besides, I don't know how to spell a cough.
Cecily. Ever since I first laid eyes on your wonderful and incomparable beauty, I have dared to love you wildly, passionately, devotedly, hopelessly.
I don't think you should tell me you love me wildly, passionately, devotedly, hopelessly. Hopelessly, it doesn't seem to make much sense, does it?
Cecily.
Don't can't with you, sir.
Tell her to come round next week, at the same hour.
Yes, sir.
Uncle Jack would be very much annoyed if he knew that you were staying on till next week at the same hour.
Oh, I don't care about Jack. I don't care about anyone in the whole world but you. I love you, Cecily. You will marry me, won't you?
You silly boy. Of course. Why, we've been engaged for the last 3 months.
For the last 3 months.
Yes. It'll be exactly 3 months on Thursday.
But, how did we become engaged?
Well, ever since dear Uncle Jack first confessed to us that he had a younger brother who was very wicked and bad, you, of course, naturally formed the chief topic of conversation between myself and Miss Prism. And there is always something very attractive about a man who is much talked about. One feels there must be something in him after all. I dare say it was foolish of me, but I fell in love with you, Ernest.
Darling, when was the engagement actually finalized?
On the 14th of February last, worn out by your entire ignorance of my existence, I determined to end the matter one way or the other. After a long struggle with myself, I finally accepted you under this dear old tree here. The next day, I bought this little ring in your name. And this is the bangle, the true lover's knot I promised you always to wear.
Did I buy you this? It's very pretty, isn't it?
Yes, you've wonderfully good taste, Ernest. It's the excuse I've always given for your leading such a bad life. Oh, and this is the box in which I keep all your dear letters.
My letters? But my own sweet Cecily. I haven't written you any letters.
You need hardly remind me of that, Ernest. I remember only too well how I was forced to write your letters for you. I wrote always 3 times a week, and sometimes oftener.
May I read them?
No, I couldn't possibly allow it. It would make you far too conceited. The 3 that you wrote me after I'd broken off the engagement are so beautiful. And so badly spelled. And that even now I can hardly read them without crying a little.
Was our engagement ever really broken off?
Of course it was. On the 22nd of last month. You can read the entry if you like. Today I broke off my engagement with Ernest. I feel it is better to do so. The weather still continues charming.
What had I done? I had done nothing at all. I must say, Cecily, I'm very much hurt to hear that you would call off our engagement, especially when the weather was so charming.
Well, it would have hardly been a really serious engagement if it hadn't been broken off at least once. But I forgave you before the week was out.
What a perfect angel you are.
Oh, you dear little boy. I hope your hair curls naturally, does it?
Yes. with a little help from others.
I'm very glad to hear it.
Promise me you'll never break off our engagement again, Cecily?
I don't think I could break it off now that I've actually met you. Besides, of course, there is the question of your name.
Yes, of course.
You mustn't laugh at me, darling, but it has always been a girlish dream of mine to love someone with the name of Ernest. There is something in that name that inspires one with absolute confidence. I pity any poor married woman whose husband is not called Ernest.
But, my own sweet Cecily, do you mean to say you could not love me if I had some other name?
But what other name?
Any name you like. Algernon, for instance.
But I don't like the name Algernon.
Well, I really don't see what you should have against the name of Algernon. It's not at all a bad name. In fact, it's rather an aristocratic name. Did you know that half the chap who gets into the bankruptcy court are called Algernon? But seriously, Cecily, if my name were Algie, couldn't you love me?
I might respect you, Ernest. I might admire your character. But I'm afraid I would not be able to give you my undivided attention.
Your rector here is, I assume, thoroughly versed in the practice of all the rites and ceremonials of the church.
Oh, yes. Dr. Chasuble is a most learned man. He has never written a single book, so you can imagine how much he knows.
Right. I must see him at once on the most important christening. And most important business.
Oh?
I shan't be away for more than half an hour.
Considering that we have been engaged since February the 14th, and that I only actually met you today for the first time, I think it is rather hard that you should leave me so long a period as half an hour. Couldn't you make it 20 minutes?
I'll be back in no time.
What an impetuous boy he is! I do like his hair so much. I must enter his proposal into my diary.
Miss Fairfax has just called to see Mr. Welding. Very important business, Miss Fairfax states.
Isn't Mr. Worthing in his library?
Mr. Welding went over in the direction of the rectory some time ago.
Pray tell the lady to come here. I'm sure Mr. Worthing will be back soon. And you can bring tea.
Yes, miss.
Miss Fairfax. I assume one of the many good elderly women associated with Uncle Jack at some of his more philanthropic work in London. I don't quite like women who are associated with philanthropic work. I think it is so forward of them.
Miss Fairfax.
Pray, allow me to introduce myself. My name is Cecily Cardew.
Cecily Cardew. What a very sweet name. Something tells me we are going to be great friends. I like you already more than I can say. My first impressions of people are never wrong.
Well, how nice of you to like me so much after we've known each other such a comparatively short time. Pray, sit down.
I may call you Cecily, may I not?
Oh, with pleasure.
And you will always call me Gwendolen, won't you?
If you wish.
Then it is all quite settled, is it not?
I hope so.
Perhaps this might be a favourable opportunity of my mentioning who I am. My father is Lord Bracknell. You have never heard of Papa, I suppose?
No, I don't think so.
Outside the family circle, I am glad to say Papa is entirely unknown. And I think that is quite as it should be. The home seems to me to be the perfect sphere for the man. And once a man begins to neglect his domestic duties, he becomes painfully effeminate, does he not? And I don't like that. It makes men so very attractive. Cecily, Mamma, whose views on education are remarkably strict, has brought me up to be extremely short-sighted. It is part of her system. So do you mind my looking at you through my glasses?
Oh, not at all, Gwendolyn. I'm very fond of being looked at.
You were here on a shop visit, I suppose.
Oh, no, I live here.
Really? Your mother, no doubt, or some female relative of advanced years resides here also.
Oh, no, I have no mother, nor indeed any relations.
Indeed.
My guardian, with the assistance of Miss Prism, has the arduous task of looking after me.
Your guardian?
Yes, I'm Mr. Worthing's ward.
Oh, it is strange. He never mentioned to me that he had a ward. How secretive of him. He grows more interesting hourly. I am not sure, however, that the news inspires me with feelings of unmixed delight. I am very fond of you, Cecily. I have liked you ever since I met you. But I am bound to state that now I know that you are Mr. Worthing's ward, I cannot help feeling a wish, or expressing a wish, that you were just a little older than you seem to be, and not so quite very alluring in appearance. In fact, if I may speak candidly.
Oh, pray do. I believe that whenever one has anything unpleasant to say, one should always be quite candid.
Well, Cecily, to speak with perfect candor, I wish that you were fully 42 and more than usually plain for your age. Ernest is a strong, upright nature. He is the very soul of truth and honor. Disloyalty would be as impossible to him as deception. But even men of the noblest possible moral character are extremely susceptible to the influencing charms of others. Modern, no less than ancient history has supplied us with many most painful examples of what I refer to. If it were not so indeed, history would be quite unreadable.
I beg your pardon, Gwendolyn, but did you say Ernest?
Yes.
Oh, but it is not Mr. Ernest Worthing who is my guardian. It's his brother, his elder brother.
Ernest never mentioned to me that he had a brother.
Well, I am sorry to say they have not been on good terms for quite some time.
Ah, that accounts for it. And now that I think of it, I have never heard any man mention his brother. The subject seems distasteful to most men. Oh, Cecily, you have lifted a load from my mind. I was growing almost anxious. It would have been terrible if any cloud had overcome a friendship like ours, would it not? Of course, you are quite sure that it is not Mr. Ernest Worthing who is your guardian.
Quite sure. In fact, I am going to be his.
I beg your pardon?
Dearest Gwendolyn, there is no reason I should make a secret of it to you. Our little county newspaper is bound to chronicle the fact next week. Ernest and I are engaged to be married.
I think there might be some slight error, Miss Cardew. Mr. Ernest Worthing is engaged to me. The announcement will appear in the Morning Post on Saturday at the latest.
But I'm afraid there must be some misconception. Ernest proposed to me exactly 10 minutes ago.
It is very curious, for he asked me to be his wife yesterday at 5:30. If you would care to verify the incident, pray do so. Here is my diary. I never travel without my diary. One should always have something sensational to read on the train. I am very sorry, dear Cecily, if it is any disappointment to you, but I'm afraid I had the prior claim.
It would distress me more than I can tell you, dear Gwendolyn. Should it cause you any mental or physical anguish? But I feel bound to point out that since Ernest proposed to you, he has clearly changed his mind.
If the poor fellow has been entrapped into any foolish promise, I will consider it my duty to rescue him at once, and with a firm hand.
Whatever unfortunate entanglement my poor boy may have got himself into, I shall never reproach him with it after we are married.
Do you allude to me, Miss Cardew, as an entanglement? You are presumptuous. And on an occasion of this kind, it becomes more than a moral duty to speak one's mind. It becomes a pleasure.
Do you suggest that I entrapped Ernest into an engagement? How dare you! This is no time to wear the shadow mask of manners. When I see a spade, I call it a spade.
I am glad to say I have never seen a spade. It is obvious our social spheres have been widely different.
Shall I lay tea here, as usual, miss?
Yes, as usual.
Are there any interesting walks in the vicinity, Miss Cardew?
Oh, yes, a great many. From the top of one of the hills quite close, one can see 5 counties.
5 counties? I don't think I should like that. I hate crowds.
I suppose that's why you live in town?
Quite a well-kept garden this is, Miss Cardew.
So glad you like it, Miss Fairfax.
I had no idea there were any flowers in the country.
Oh, flowers are as common here, Miss Fairfax, as people are in London.
I don't know how anyone exists in the country. That's if anybody who anybody does. The country always bores me to death.
This is what the newspapers are calling agricultural depression, is it not? I believe the aristocracy are suffering from it very much just at present. It is almost an epidemic amongst them, I'm told. May I offer you some tea, Miss Fairfax?
Yes, please, Miss Cardew. Detestable girl, but I require tea.
Sugar?
No, thank you. Sugar is not fashionable anymore.
Cake? Oh, bread and butter.
Bread and butter, please. Cake. Bread and butter, please. Cake is rarely seen at the best houses nowadays.
Hand that to Miss Fairfax.
You have filled my cup with lumps of sugar. And though I asked you most distinctly for bread and butter, you have given me cake. I am known for the gentleness of my disposition and the extraordinary sweetness of my nature. But I warn you, Miss Cardew, you may go too far.
To save my poor, innocent, trusting boy from the machinations of any girl, there are no lengths to which I will not go.
From the moment I saw you, I distrusted you. I felt that you were false and deceitful. I am never deceived in this manner. My first impressions of people are invariably right.
It seems to me, Miss Fairfax, that I am trespassing on your valuable time. No doubt you have many other calls of a similar character to make in the neighborhood.
Ernest, my own Ernest! Oh, a moment. May I ask if you are engaged to be married to this young lady?
To dear, sweet little Cecily? Of course not. What could have put such a silly idea in your pretty little head?
You may, thank you.
I knew there must be some misunderstanding, Miss Fairfax. The gentleman whose arm is at present round your waist is my guardian, Mr. John Worthing.
Oh, John.
This is Uncle Jack.
Oh, Jack!
Here is Ernest.
Cecily, my own.
A moment, please, Ernest. May I ask, are you engaged to be married to this young lady?
To what young lady? Good heavens, to Gwendolyn.
Yes, to good heavens. I mean to Gwendolyn.
Of course not. What could have put such an idea into your pretty little head?
Thank you. You may.
Miss Cardew, I think there might be some slight error. The gentleman who is currently embracing you is my cousin, Mr. Algernon Moncrief.
Algernon Moncrief. Oh! Is your name really Algernon?
I cannot deny it.
Is your name really John?
I could deny it if I liked. I could deny anything if I liked. But it's certainly John. It's been John for years.
A gross deception has been practiced upon both of us.
My poor wounded Cecily.
My sweet, rocked Gwendolyn.
You will call me sister, will you not?
There is just one thing I should be allowed to ask my guardian.
An admirable idea. Mr. Worthing, there is just one question I would like to be permitted to put to you. Where is your brother Ernest? We are both engaged to be married to your brother Ernest. So it is a matter of some importance for us to know where your brother Ernest is at present.
Gwendolyn. Cecily. It's very painful for me to be forced to speak the truth. It's the first time in my life I've ever been reduced to such a position. And I'm really quite inexperienced at doing anything of the kind. But I will speak quite frankly, and I'll tell you, I have no brother. I never had a brother. I have no intention of having one in the future, not of any kind.
No brother at all?
None.
But had you never a brother of any kind?
Never. Not even of any kind.
It is quite clear, Cecily, that neither of us are engaged to be married to anyone.
It's not a very pleasant position for a young girl to find herself in suddenly, is it?
Let us go into the house. They will hardly venture to come after us there.
No. Men are so cowardly, aren't they?
This ghastly state of things is what you call bunburying, I suppose.
Yes. What a wonderful Bunbury it is, too. It's the most wonderful Bunbury I've ever had in my life.
Well, you've no right to Bunbury here, or anywhere else.
That is absurd. One has a right to Bunbury anywhere one chooses. Every serious Bunburyist knows that.
Serious Bunburyist. Good heavens.
One must be serious about something if one is to have any enjoyment in life. I happen to be serious about Bunburying. What on earth you are serious about, I haven't the remotest idea. About everything, I should fancy. You have such an absolutely trivial nature.
The only small satisfaction I have in this ghastly business is that your friend Bunbury is quite exploded. You won't be able to run off down the country as often as you like now, there, Algy, will you? And a very good thing, too.
Well, your poor brother isn't looking too hot now, is he, dear Jack? You won't be able to pop off up to town quite so often as your wicked custom was. And not such a bad thing either.
And as for your conduct towards Miss Cardew, I find you taking in a sweet, simple, innocent girl like that disgraceful, to say nothing of the fact that she's my ward.
Well, I can see no possible defence in your deceiving a brilliant, clever, thoroughly experienced young lady like Miss Fairfax, to say nothing of the fact that she is my cousin.
I am in love with Gwendolen. I want to be married to her, that is all.
I simply wanted to be married to Cecily. I adore her.
Well, there's certainly no chance of you marrying Miss Cardew.
Well, it doesn't look like there's much chance of you and Miss Fairfax being united either.
That's no business of yours.
Well, if it was my business, I wouldn't talk about it. Only people like stockbrokers talk about their own business, and even then, only at dinner parties.
How you can sit there calmly eating muffins while we're in this horrid business, I can't make out. You seem to me to be perfectly heartless.
Well, I can't eat muffins in an agitated manner. The butter would probably get on my cuffs. No, one must always eat muffins quite calmly. It's the only way to eat them.
I say it's perfectly heartless of you eating muffins at all, given the circumstances.
When I am in trouble, eating is the only thing that consoles me. Indeed, when I am in truly great trouble, as anyone who knows me intimately will tell you, I refuse everything except for food and drink. At the present moment, I am eating muffins because I am unhappy. Besides, I'm particularly fond of muffins.
Well, there's no need for you to eat more in that great way.
Jack, I wish you'd have tea cake instead. I don't like tea cake.
Good heavens, I suppose a man might eat his own muffins in his own garden.
You just said it was perfectly heartless to eat muffins.
No, I said it was perfectly heartless of you to eat muffins given the circumstances. That's a very different thing.
Yes, well, the muffins are the same.
Algernon, why won't you go? I don't want you here.
You can't ask me to go before I've had dinner. I never go anywhere without having my dinner first. Nobody ever does, except for vegetarians and people like that. Besides, I've just made arrangements with Dr. Chasuble to be christened at 5:45 under the name of Ernest.
My dear fellow, the sooner you get that idea out of your head, the better. I myself made arrangements this afternoon with Dr. Chasuble to be christened at 5:30. And I will naturally take the name of Ernest. Gwendolen will wish it. We can't both be christened Ernest, it's absurd. Besides, I have a perfect right to be christened if I like. There's no evidence whatsoever I've ever been christened, and Dr. Chasuble agrees. You, however, have been christened already.
Yes. But I haven't been christened for years.
Yes. But you have been christened. That is the important thing.
Quite so. I know that my constitution can handle it. I mean, if you're not quite sure about your ever having been christened, I must say I find it rather reckless you venturing on the subject now. You can hardly have forgotten, Jack, that someone very closely related to you was nearly carried off in Paris this week by severe chill.
Yes, but you said yourself the severe chill isn't hereditary.
Yes, well, it used to be, I know, but I dare say it is now. Scientists are always coming up with wonderful improvements on things.
This is nonsense. You're always talking nonsense.
Jack, you're at the muffins again. I already told you I'm particularly fond of muffins and there's only 2 left.
But I hate tea cake.
Why on earth then do you let it be served up for your guests? What idea do you have on hospitality?
Why won't you go? I don't want you here. Why won't you go?
I haven't finished my tea yet. And there's still 1 muffin left.
follow us at once into the house, as anyone else would have done, seems to me they have some sense of shame left.
They have been eating muffins. That looks like repentance.
They don't seem to notice us at all. According to your cough.
But I haven't got a cough.
They're looking at us. What effrontery!
They're approaching. That's very forward of them.
Let us preserve a dignified silence.
Certainly. It is the only thing to do now.
This dignified silence seems to produce an unpleasant effect.
A most distasteful one.
But we will not be the first to speak.
Certainly not.
Mr. Worthing, I have something very particular to put to you. Much depends on your reply.
Gwendolyn, your common sense is invaluable. Mr. Moncrief, kindly answer me the following question. Why did you pretend to be my guardian's brother?
Why, that in order that I might have the opportunity of meeting you, of course.
That certainly seems a satisfactory explanation, does it not?
Yes, dear, if you can believe him.
I don't. But that does not excuse the wonderful beauty of his answer.
True. In matters of grave importance, style, not sincerity, is the vital thing. Mr. Worthing, what explanation can you offer to me for pretending to have a brother? Was it in order that you may have the opportunity of coming up to town to see me as often as possible?
Can you doubt it, Miss Fairfax?
I have the gravest doubts upon this subject, but I intend to crush them. This is not the moment for German skepticism. Cecily, your explanations seem to be quite satisfactory, especially Mr. Worthing's. That seems to me to have the stamp of truth upon them.
I am more than content with what Mr. Moncrief said. His voice alone inspires one with absolute credulity.
Then you think we should forgive them?
Yes. I mean, no.
True. There are principles at stake that one cannot surrender. Which of us will tell them? The task is not a pleasant one.
Could we not both speak at the same time?
An excellent idea. I nearly always speak at the same time as other people. Will you take the time from me?
Certainly.
Your Christian names are still an insuperable barrier. That is all.
Our Christian names? Is that all?
But
we're to be christened this afternoon.
For my sake, you are prepared to do this terrible thing.
I am.
To please me, you are ready to face this fearful ordeal.
I am.
How absurd to speak of the equality of the sexes when matters of self-sacrifice are here. Men are infinitely beyond us.
We are.
They have moments of physical courage of which we women know absolutely nothing.
Darling!
Lady Bracknell.
Good heavens!
Gwendolyn, what is the meaning of this? Merely that I'm engaged to Mr. Worthing, Mamma. Come here. Sit down. Sit down at once. Hesitation of any sort is a sign of mental decay in the young, physical weakness in the old. Apprised, sir, of my daughter's sudden flight by her trusty maid, whose confidence I purchased by means of small coin, I followed her here at once by a luggage train. Her unhappy father is, I am pleased to say, under the impression that she is attending a somewhat more than usually lengthy lecture by the University Extension Scheme on the influence of a permanent income on thought. I do not intend to undeceive him. I have never undeceived him on any question I would consider it wrong. And now, you will understand that all communication between yourself and my daughter must cease immediately from this moment. On this point, as on all points, I am firm.
I am engaged to Gwendolyn, Lady Bracknell.
You are nothing of the sort. Now, as regards Algernon. Algernon,
May I ask, is it in this house that your invalid friend, Mr. Bunbury, resides?
Bunbury? No, no. Bunbury isn't here. Bunbury is somewhere else. In fact, Bunbury's dead.
Dead? Oh, when did he die? His death must have been extremely sudden.
I killed Bunbury this afternoon. I mean, poor Bunbury died this afternoon.
Oh, what did he die of?
Bunbury? No, he was quite exploded.
Exploded? Or was he the victim of a revolutionary outrage? I was not aware that Mr. Bunbury was interested in social legislation. If so, he was well punished for his morbidity.
No, Aunt Augusta. I mean that Bunbury was found out. The doctors found out that Bunbury could not live. That is what I meant. And so, Bunbury died.
Mr. Bunbury must have had great belief in the opinions of his physician. But I am glad that at the last he decided on some definite course of action and proper medical advice. And now that we are finally rid of this Mr. Bunbury, I must ask you, Mr. Worthing, who is that young lady whose hand my nephew is holding in what seems to me a most unnecessary manner?
That lady, Lady Bracknell, is Miss Cecily Cardew, my ward.
Cecily and I are engaged to be married, Aunt Augusta.
I beg your pardon?
Mr. Moncrief and I are engaged to be married, Lady Bracknell.
Oh, I do not know if there is anything peculiarly exciting in the air in this particular part of Hertfordshire. But the number of engagements that go on seem to me to be well above the average that statistics have laid down for our guidance. A preliminary inquiry on my part, I think, would not be out of place. Now then, Mr. Worthing, may I ask you, does Miss Cardew have any connections with any of the larger railway stations in London? I merely desire information. Until yesterday, I was not aware that there were any families or persons whose origin was a terminus.
Miss Cecily Cardew is the granddaughter of the late Mr. Thomas Cardew, of 149 Belgrave Square, SW, Gervase Park, Dorking, Surrey, and the Sporrans, Fifeshire, NV.
That is not unsatisfactory. 3 addresses always inspires confidence, even in tradesmen. But what proof have I of their authenticity?
I have carefully preserved the court records of the time. They're open to your scrutiny, Lady Bracknell.
Oh, I have known very strange errors in that publication.
Miss Cardew's solicitors are Mrs. Markby, Markby, and Markby.
Oh, Markby, Markby and Markby. A firm of the highest position in their profession. Indeed, I have been told that one of the Mr. Markbys can occasionally be seen at dinner parties. So far, I am satisfied.
How incredibly kind of you, Lady Bracknell. I also have in my possession, you shall be pleased to hear, certificates of Miss Cardew's birth, baptism, whooping cough registration, vaccination, and the measles, both the English and the German varieties.
A life full of expectations. I don't know, I have never been fond of premature experiences. Come, Gwendolen, we haven't a moment to lose. It is time for our departure. But, as a matter of form, I must ask you, Mr. Worthing, does Miss Cardew have any little fortune?
Oh, nearly £130,000 in the funds. That's all. Goodbye, Lady Bracknell. So pleased to have seen you.
A moment, Mr. Worthing. £130,000. And in the funds. Miss Cardew seems to me a most attractive young lady now that I look at her. Few girls of the present day have any really solid qualities. qualities that last or improve with time. We live, I am afraid to say, in an age of surfaces. Come here, dear. Sweet child. Your dress is sadly simple, and your hair is almost as nature may have left it. But all that can be altered. A thoroughly experienced French maid can produce marvellous results in a very brief space of time. I remember recommending one to young Lady Lansing, and in 3 months, her own husband didn't know her.
And after 6 months, nobody knew her.
Turn around, please, dear. No, the side view is what I want. Yes, there are distinct social possibilities in your profile. The 2 weak points of our age are its lack of principle and its lack of profile. Chin, a little higher, dear. The style depends largely on how high the chin is worn. They're worn very high at the moment, Algernon.
Yes, Aunt Augusta.
There are distinct social possibilities in Miss Cardew's profile.
Cecily is the sweetest, prettiest girl I've ever seen, and I don't give a tuppence about social possibility.
No, never speak disrespectfully of society, Algernon. Only people who can't get into it do that. Now, you do understand that Algernon only has his debts to depend upon. But I'm not in favour of mercenary marriages. When I married Lord Bracknell, I had no fortune of any kind, but I never dreamt of allowing that to stand in my way. So, I think I had better give my consent.
Thank you, Aunt Augusta.
Cecily, you may kiss me.
Thank you, Lady Bracknell.
No, you must address me as Aunt Augusta for the future.
Thank you, Aunt Augusta.
Now, I think the marriage had better take place quite soon.
Thank you, Aunt Augusta.
Thank you, Aunt Augusta.
Yes, I have never been in favour of long engagements. They allow people to learn about the characters of each other before marriage. I have never thought it was advisable.
Pray, excuse me, Lady Bracknell, for interrupting you. But I'm afraid this engagement is quite out of the question. I am Miss Cardew's guardian, and as a guardian she requires my consent to marry, and that consent I absolutely decline to give.
Now, upon what grounds, may I ask? Algernon is an extremely, I might almost say, ostentatiously eligible young man. He has nothing, but he looks everything.
It pains me very greatly to speak frankly to you, Lady Bracknell, about your nephew. But I don't at all approve of his character. I suspect him of being dishonest.
Dishonest? My nephew Algernon? Impossible. He is an Oxonian.
Oh, I'm afraid there could be no small doubt on the matter. Just this afternoon, on my temporary absence in London on a very important mission of romance, he obtained, under the false pretense of being my brother, admission to my home. Over the course of a single afternoon, he drank, I have just been informed by my butler, an entire pint bottle of my Perrier Jouet Brut 89. Wine I was specifically reserving for myself. Continuing in his vile deception, he succeeded in the course of a single afternoon in alienating my only ward. He subsequently stayed to tea and devoured every single muffin. And what makes his conduct all the more heartless is, he knew from the first that I have no brother, that I never have a brother, and I have no intention of having one, none of any kind. I told him so myself yesterday afternoon.
Well, upon careful consideration, I have decided to completely overlook my nephew's conduct towards you.
How incredibly generous of you, Lady Bracknell. My own decision, however, is unalterable. I decline to give my consent.
No. Come here, sweet child. How old are you?
Well, I am really only 18, But I always admit to 20 when going to evening parties.
Oh, admirable. You should always make some slight alteration. No woman should ever be so accurate about her age. It looks so calculating. Now, 18. But admitting to 20 at evening parties. Well, it will not be long before you are of age and free from the restraints of tutelage. So, I feel the consent of your guardian is hardly a matter of any importance.
Pray, excuse me, Lady Bracknell, for interrupting you again. But I feel it's only fair to tell you that, under the terms of her grandfather's will, Miss Cardew doesn't come of age till she's quite 35.
That does not seem to me to be a grave objection. 35 is a very attractive age. In London society, there are women of the highest birth who by their own choice have remained 35 for years. Lady Dumbleton is an instance in point. To my own knowledge, she has remained 35 ever since she reached the age of 40. 2 years ago now. No, I don't see why our own dear sweet Cecily should not be even more attractive at the age you mentioned than she is at present. There will be a large accumulation of property.
Algy, could you wait for me till I was 35?
Of course I could, Cecily. You know I could.
Yes, I felt it instinctively. But I couldn't wait all that time. I hate waiting even 5 minutes for anybody. It always makes me rather cross. Of course, I am not punctual myself, but I admire punctuality in others, and waiting, even to be married, is quite out of the question.
Then what is to be done, Cecily?
I don't know, Mr. Moncrief.
Mr. Worthing, as Miss Cardew states that she cannot wait until she is 35, a remark which I feel does seem to show a very impatient nature, I feel I must ask you to reconsider your decision.
But my dear Lady Bracknell, the decision's entirely in your own hands. As soon as you consent to my engagement to Gwendolen, I will happily allow my nephew to live more than life with your ward.
No, you must know that that will never happen.
Well, then the passionate celibacy is all in to look forward to.
Well, that is not the destiny I intend for Gwendolen. Algernon, of course, can choose for himself. Come along, dear. We have already missed 5, if not 6 trains. To miss more might expose us to comment on the platform.
Everything is quite ready for the christenings.
Christenings? Is that not a little premature?
Well, both of these gentlemen have expressed a desire for immediate baptism.
At their age, it is grotesque and irreligious. Algernon, I refuse to let you be baptized. I will not consider any of this excess. Your uncle would be highly displeased if you thought that was how you wasted your time and your money.
Oh, am I to understand then that there are to be no christenings at all this afternoon?
I don't see, as things are now, Dr. Cheswell, it would be much use to either of us.
Oh. I am grieved to hear such sentiments from you, dear Mr. Worthing. See, they savour of the heretical views of the Anabaptists, views that I have completely refuted in 4 of my unpublished sermons. However, as the present mood seems one of a peculiarly secular, I shall return to the church at once. Indeed, I have just been informed by a pew opener for the last hour and a half Miss Prism has been waiting for me in the vestry.
Miss Prism? Did you say Miss Prism?
Oh, yes, Lady Bracknell, I am on my way to join her.
Pray let me detain you. This could be of vital importance to myself and Lord Bracknell. Is Miss Prism a female of repellent aspect, remotely connected with education?
Oh, well, she is the most cultivated of ladies and the sheer picture of respectability.
It is obviously the same person. May I ask what position she holds in your household?
Oh, I am a celibate, madam.
Miss Prism, Lady Bracknell, has been for the past 3 years Miss Cardew's esteemed governess, and cherished me.
Despite what I hear of her, I must see her. Let her be sent for.
Oh, she approaches. She is nigh.
Hey, Canon, I've been waiting for you. I've asked you for an hour and 3/4.
Prism! Come here, Prism. Where is that baby? 28 years ago, Prism, you left Lord Bracknell's house in charge of a perambulator which contained a baby of the male sex. You never returned. A few weeks later, owing to the elaborate investigations of the Metropolitan Police, the perambulator was discovered at midnight, standing by itself in a remote corner of Bayswater. It contained a volume of a rather more than usually revolting sentimentality. But the baby was not there. Where is that baby, Prism?
Lady Bracknell, it is with shame that I do not know. I only wish I did. Plain facts of the case are these. On the morning of the day you mention, a day forever branded on my memory, I prepared as usual to take the baby out in its perambulator, and I had with me a somewhat old but capacious handbag, in which I had intended to place the manuscript of a work of fiction that I had written in my few unoccupied hours. But in a moment of mental extravagance, a mental abstraction that I'll never forgive myself for, I placed the manuscript in the bassinet and the baby in the handbag.
Where did you deposit the handbag?
Oh, do not ask me, Dr. Worley.
Miss Prism, this is a matter of no small importance to me. I insist on knowing where you deposited the handbag containing that infant.
In the cloakroom of one of the larger London railway stations.
What railway station?
Victoria, the Brighton line.
I must retire to my room for a moment. Gwendolyn, wait here for me.
If you are not too long, I will wait here for you all my life.
What do you think this means, Lady Bracknell?
I dare not suspect. Families of high position, strange coincidences are not supposed to occur. They are hardly considered the thing.
Uncle Jack seems strangely agitated.
Well, your guardian is one of a very emotional nature.
Oh, the noise is quite distasteful. Oh, it sounds as if he was having an argument. And I detest arguments of any sort. They're always vulgar and often convincing.
It has stopped.
I do wish he would come to some conclusion.
The suspense is terrible. I hope it were lost.
Is this the handbag, Miss Prism? Examine it carefully. The happiness of more than one person depends on your answer.
It seems to be mine. An injury, caused by the upsetting of a Gower Street omnibus in earlier happier days. And look, the stain on the lining. It's caused by the explosion of a temperance beverage. An incident, I think, that occurred in Leamington. And, I had my initials placed here on the lock. In a moment of madness. This bag, this is undoubtedly mine. And I'm so happy to have it restored to me.
Miss Prism, more is restored to you than this handbag. I was the baby you placed in it.
You?
Yes, Mother!
Mr. Worthy, but I am unmarried.
Unmarried? Oh, I don't deny that this is a serious blow. But who am I to throw a stone at one who has suffered? Why should it be one rule for men and another for women? Mother, I forgive you.
There's been some error. That's the lady who can tell you who you are.
Lady Bracknell, I hate seeming inquisitive, but would you kindly tell me who I am?
Well, the news I am about to give you may not altogether please you. You are the son of my poor sister, Mrs. Moncrief, and consequently, the Algernon's elder brother.
Algy's elder brother. They have a brother after all. Cecily, how could you doubt that I had a brother? Dr. Chasuble, my unfortunate brother. Miss Prism, my unfortunate brother. Gwendolyn, my unfortunate brother. Algy, you young scoundrel. You'll have to behave to me better in future. You've never behaved to me like a brother in your life.
Well, not till today, old boy, I admit. I did my best, though, but I was out of practice.
But what own are you? What is your Christian name, now that you've become someone else?
Good heavens, I'd quite forgotten that fact. Your own decision on the matter of my name is unalterable, I suppose.
I never change, except in my affection.
What a noble nature you have, Gwendolyn.
Well, the matter had better be settled at once. Lady, Aunt Augusta, at the time when I've been placed in the handbag, have I been christened?
Yeah, every luxury that money could afford, including christenings, had been lavished upon you by your fond and doting parents.
Then I was christened. That is settled. All right. What name was I given? Let me know the worst.
Oh, well, naturally, as the eldest son, you were christened after your father.
Yes. But what was my father's Christian name?
Ah. Yeah, I can't quite recall what the general's Christian name was. I know he had one, but he was eccentric. But that was the result of marriage and the Indian climate and indigestion and things like that.
Algy, can't you recall our father's Christian name?
My dear fellow, we weren't exactly on speaking terms. He died before I was a year old.
His name would appear in the military records of the time, I suppose, Aunt Augusta?
Oh, well, yes, the general was essentially a man of peace, except in his domestic life. But his name would appear in any of the military directories.
The military records of the past 50 years are here. These delightful tomes should have been my constant study. M. Generals. Magley. Mobbs. Migley. Ghastly names they have. Moxby. Moncrief. Lieutenant, 1849. Lieutenant Colonel. General, 1869. Christian names. Ernest John. I told you, Gwendolyn, my name is Ernest. I mean, it's actually Ernest. It's naturally Ernest.
Yes, I remember now the general was called Ernest. I knew I had a particular reason for disliking the name.
Ernest, my own Ernest. I felt from the very start you could have no other name.
Gwendolyn, it's a terrible thing for a man to discover that his entire life he's been speaking nothing but the truth. Can you forgive me?
Of course I can, darling, because I know you are bound to change.
My own one.
Letitia!
Frederick! At last!
Cecily, at last!
Gwendolyn, at last!
My nephew, you seem to be showing signs of triviality.
On the contrary, Aunt Augusta, for the first time in my life, I understand the vital importance of being earnest.